called diaspora, and I'm supposed to be a diaspora or a relation, we all have a common ethnic identity. And this perpetuates the impression that all Indians, regardless of which part of the world they come from, can only think in a similar way, act as a group. There's no consideration to sub-ethnic cleavages, there's no consideration about class cleavages. But here I'd also like to bring up another concept, commodifying ethnicity by Jean and John Komarov. These anthropologists were extremely interested in the concept of commodifying ethnicity for the simple reason they recognized that identity had changed in Africa, had changed significantly. But people still called upon identity as a mechanism to do business. So in that sense, ethnicity or identity became a tool for business, rather than actually representing how they really viewed the ethnicity. So what this suggests is that here, ethnically based resources and networks, according to the literature, is rather institutionalized, and they do play a key role in terms of how co-ethnics do business. It is this that we wanted to challenge. We felt when we looked at businesses, it does not capture the diversity that exists among these Indian-owned enterprises in Southeast Asia, or in this case, Malaysia. So what did we do? We looked at three particular sectors: food, textile, and jewelry. Why these particular three sectors? Because it's here that you see the so-called Indianness so prevalent, Indian food. Textiles, Indian textiles, the sari, for example. And of course, jewelry, especially religious-based jewelry. Let me go quickly now because I only have 10 minutes to the core findings. Now, we went in thinking we are going to tear apart this theory and show this theory is absolutely wrong. And we found it's not so simple. When we looked at particular sectors, we found that the way in which they used identity really depended on two things. One, their class resources. How highly educated are they? How rich are they? In what circles do they move? The second issue was changing market trends. Market trends also change. And people, businessmen, are aware of these market trends, and they will adapt the way they do business to changing market trends. Both factors had a bearing on how they commodified the identity, the use of identity as a tool. New generations of ethnic Indians are very conversant in the national language Malay, as well as in English. That's a crucial resource too. And they help themselves to these resources in terms of how they want to do business, depending on the clientele that they want to capture. So you can see operational shifts in terms of how these businesses operate. They change, they're constantly changing. There's nothing constant about how they do business. The second issue, when we look at it from a sectoral perspective, this is where things began to get very interesting. When we looked at food, yes, they started off as an ethnic enterprise. They were Indian based. You go to an Indian restaurant and you eat Indian food. Indian caterers, you go to them because they serve Indian food. But when we looked at their cuisine, we found that it had become extremely multiracial. The cuisine was extremely diverse. Yes, they had an Indian identity, but when they went out to the market, they realized if they wanted to do well in business, they had to transcend their ethnic identity. And by doing so, they capture a larger market. If they use identity and ethnicity, it really limits their clientele. When we looked at textiles, we found something very different. In the textiles industry, we'll see, yes, they do sell Indian type garb, but they also now were beginning to reach out to another clientele, not just Indians, but also Malays. And as we were trying to understand why were the Malays so interested in Indian textile, we found the emergence of Bollywood. Bollywood, if you come to Malaysia, is extremely popular. And Bollywood seems to have captured the imagination of many of other ethnic groups, especially the Malays. And now you will find that they are beginning to come to these ethnic-based enterprises, these textile industries, and they're looking for that kind of garb. And then they're changing the way in which they dress. Interesting developments in society, even transnational events which were happening around the world, which were beginning to affect the clientele. And here we see a mix. We see a mix of trying to present an ethnic identity or to commodify it to a large extent, but also at the same time reaching out to non-ethnic groups because they recognize the impact of what was happening in South Asia on Southeast Asia and how it was changing things. But when we looked at the textile industry more closely, we found a significant class difference. There were textile industries which were extremely rich, catering to a specific clientele, a very elite clientele. For this group of people, they had no desire whatsoever to be associated with the term Indian. They are not Indian. They are businessmen. They are Malaysian. We sell everything. We have products from all over the world. So please don't call us Indian. And their clientele was so elite that they were always to be found in the largest shopping malls around the country. So here, within the industries, we see these class differences very clearly. And then we looked at jewelry. Jewelry is interesting because here we were looking specifically at the small-scale industries. And here, the class resources were very limited. Their clientele was very clear. They wanted ethnic Indians. And here we found another aspect which was extremely interesting: religion. And the ornaments that they made, Hindu religion, they were targeting a particular clientele. And here, commodifying ethnicity became, even religion, became extremely important for this group of people. So the conclusions: as much as we thought the concepts of ethnic enterprise and ethnic enclaves so pervasive in the literature in the West was inapplicable in Southeast Asia, is not necessarily true. It is applicable to some extent, but as I say here, please, let's use this cautiously. When we say ethnic enterprise, what exactly do we mean? And here, we got to look at the sectors. The sectors are extremely important. It doesn't matter in some sectors, it matters to some extent in other sectors, and it is very important in other sectors too. And here, what we can see is the concept of being an entrepreneur, ethno-entrepreneur. Here, the way it functions is extremely different. They do understand identity is important, and they do recognize they can use it as a business tool, and if they can, why not? So, my final slide. Ethnic enterprise, the concept. While I say yes, it is applicable to some extent, but the situation is extremely complex. The situation in which firms operate is extremely diverse, especially when you look at a multi-ethnic country. The second issue, generational shifts. We are now looking at companies in the second and third generation as shareholders. The way they think is very different from the migrant cohort. For the migrant cohort, ethnic identity was extremely important. By the second and third generation, it had changed. The imperatives of business, the imperatives of capital accumulation, these were the factors that determined to an extent to which they would adopt and use identity as a business tool or discard it totally. And finally, the second and third generation. We do find transitions. We do find transitions in terms of how they want to employ the ethnicity. And it is this that we found extremely interesting, because the complexity of, when we look at the way businesses operated, it also then brought to bear to us the complexity of Malaysian society, Malaysian Indian society. The levels of class differences, the levels of cleavages that existed. And it was these differences that brought out to the fore the extent to which, even among ethnic Indians, there are significant variations that we need to understand when we talk about Indians, even in Malaysia. Thank you.